This lecture is going to be about a little bit about web scraping. I kind of covered it in a in-class activity, but I want to talk a little bit more about selectors and specifically how to access specific elements of a web page. And that also includes how to find these things in dev tools. Um, and we also want to talk about ethics real quick. First, what are selectors? Selectors are patterns that are used to extract specific data from a web page's HTML structure. So, as you may or may not know, um, web pages are one of the languages used to write web pages is HTML. So this is a snippet of HTML. It's technically a markup language. It's not a programming language. Some people get snippy with the differences. And so selectors, they are what help you target the exact elements you want within a web page. So like a title or links or prices, depending on what you're doing. And there's two main types. We're going to be mostly working with CSS selectors because we'll be working with the Beautiful Soup library. But CSS selectors are these down here, and you'll notice that it is referencing the Beautiful Soup library and specifically the select function within that library. And the selector itself is this in green in double quotes. Um, H2 is the tag name, which the next couple slides will go over exactly what a tag is. And then the post dash title is the class selector. I guess, yeah. The dot post title is the class selector, and the dot, ooh, almost dropped something. The dot is what specifically means class in CSS. Um, and CSS is the like styling uh of a web page used for styling web pages. Um, and then we also have the XPath selectors here for LXML and Scrapey, but we're not using those in this class. We're just going to use Beautiful Soup. But I just wanted to show you what the syntax might look like if you were using those particular selectors. So, let me clear. So this is a handy dandy cheat sheet with common selectors. There's the tags and the dot class that I mentioned on the last slide. So when you name a specific tag like H2 or H1 or P, P stands for paragraph, H1 is the most like topmost heading format. A is for link. If you take a web dev class, you'll learn more about the specific tags and what they mean. But for the purposes of this class, it's not that big of a deal. Um, dot class will select all the elements within that class. So all of the titles, all of the prices. There's also IDs, which I'll have an example of in the next couple slides. You want to use hashtag and then the ID name. So if there's like a main ID object, then you can use that. And then there's all these other options. I guess I'll highlight this one here. The attribute with the dollar sign is going to select the item that ends with whatever the value is that you give to those double quotes. Um, so that's an example use where we're saying we're looking for a link that ends in .pdf. So let's clear all drawings. and move to the next slide. So yeah, this is a handy dandy reference, which you can come back to. But I want to spend some time looking at this example, based on what the common selectors cheat sheet showed you and kind of what I explained in the first like main slide of this video. I want you to take some time to see if you can write out what the selectors are for this particular set of items. So I'll do the first one with you guys, and then if you want to pause the video and do the rest, you know what? No. If you want to pause the video right now and work on this yourself, you may. Um, but if you'd like to go right ahead into the explanations and see the answers, then just keep watching. So pause the video if you have not yet done that, if you'd like to work on this by yourself. Otherwise, we're going to move to the next slide. So these are the answers for this. Oh my gosh, that's so confusing. So I just noticed that the way I made this Canvas slide, it looks like you're saying you have to say a dot h2 dot title. That is, ignore those. That is not what that's supposed to mean. That is just essentially a bullet point. Ignore those. That's a bullet point. That's a bullet point. That's a bullet point. Okay, that's better. So to get all of the article titles, um, we first of all, we are using this snippet of HTML. Um, and there's a div of a, they called it or there's a class, um, it's the article class. Um, and within each of these two divs that have that article class distinction, there's there's an H2 item in each, and then there's a paragraph item in each. The H2 is a title class, and the value of that, oh, I'm writing in black, so you can't see that. The title, the actual value of this attribute is article 1, and the actual value of this is article 2. So to get all of the article titles, meaning article 1, the strings article 1 and article 2, you will write this as your selector, h2 dot title. So I'm looking for all of the values within the h2 tags with a class designated by the dot title. And similarly with the author names, those are in the P tag for a paragraph. And to get all the author names, I want to, or author name slash values, it's by Alice and by Bob. You're going to say P because that is the tag. The period or dot is in saying that we are going to access a specific class, and that specific class is author. So we want to get all of the things that are paragraphs in a paragraph tag under the class author. So that is the first couple, pretty straightforward. Same for select the menu item that's marked as active. So when you're programming or writing a web page, you can say, specify what specific page is active. Like if you have a menu, like this is describing, there's a menu list with an item home and blog and about. You might want the styling of that tab to look different if that is the page that the user is actively on. So that is what active is referring to. So to select the menu item that's marked as active, I want to get the list item that has the class active. So li for list tag, the I'm gonna want a class, so that's why I'm saying dot, and then active is the name of the class. So that will return the menu item, which is blog, that is marked as active. And then we're now using referencing IDs here. So the list item for the home menu item has a ID of home. That makes sense, right? So to access that list item that has that specific ID, we use the hashtag. So I say I'm looking for the li tag that has an ID called home. And lastly, we want to find the link to the PDF file. So we're going to look for a link tag, which starts with that A. href is where we specify the link. So href is equal to something. That's what it is. That's what's in the HTML. But we're kind of treating this like a regular expression, right? So we're looking for a link attribute. Specifically, we want a link that ends with .pdf. Remember back on the other slide with the cheat sheet, um, I'll have to get rid of those. But the $ there indicates that we want to match with something that's at the end of this value. Whereas if we just want to match something that equals, we don't specify any special character. And then if we want it to start with a value, then we use the caret, um, which on my keyboard is on the 6. So to use that, I would press Shift 6. Um, just FYI, in case you didn't know how to do that. So yeah, I'm gonna clear those. And then next, I want to talk about the ethics of web scraping RQ. So web scraping isn't inherently unethical, um, but how you do it matters. So like a lot of things, how you do it matters. So it's generally okay to do web scraping if the data that you're scraping is publicly accessible and not behind a login, for example. Also, the site shouldn't prohibit it in their terms of service, so make sure you're not scraping from a website that tells you not to do that. Um, and then you should also respect the site's load, so do not continuously send requests to this site server. Just be mindful of that. And then you also don't want to be violating any user privacy or copyright laws when you're doing any scraping. But that's common sense, I hope. Um, so the last thing I want to talk about is how to find selectors using DevTools. Um, so DevTools, if you've ever looked at a web page, I'm going to go to this website here, which I'll be using for an example in code in a second. But it's just got like the top headlines apparently. Um, and let's say I want to look for specific selectors within this web page. So to do that, you can open DevTools. I'm not sure if this is different on Macs, but on my Windows system, this is how I do it. So you can open DevTools. Um, where are you? No, no, finding that. More tools. Um, So on my browser, I use Chrome. I go to my little tr three dots up in the corner, find more tools, and then go to developer tools, which you can also open by just pressing Control Shift I at the same time. And when you open that, you'll see something like this. You might have done this um, in previous classes or just for fun. But this allows you to see all the different elements and how they are laid out in a web page. And another way, by the way, is to open this up is to right click on the web page and say inspect. And depending on where you click, it'll show you specifically where that element is. So if I hover over here in the DevTools window, it's showing me all the elements, which basically shows me all of the HTML for the web page. I can hover over anything in this elements tab, and it'll show me specifically what that is on the actual web page. So that's pretty neat. Um, so let's see. This whole thing is a table, and we want to access, let's say we want to access specifically the titles of the articles, these top stories. So I'm looking here in the elements, and there's a class for title within a table data tag, which is within a table, within a body, which that makes sense. There's always a body of a web page, and then the head is a separate thing. So I'm going to look for I want to get all of the titles from this web page. And to do that, I have a script here that does just that. So I have the URL to that website. I generate a response from that website. And then I'm also going to be using the Beautiful Soup module. So I instantiated an object to use the Beautiful Soup module and called it soup. And then I find all of the titles within the response from that GET request. So for each thing, specifically a tag, like all the tags in the response text, I want to select all of the titles and then list them in a way. We'll print them for one to my console. And then I also want to export them to a text file just for funsies. Like maybe every day you want to keep track like a time capsule and see like, oh, what were the top stories of today? And like you do that, say you run this like every day just for fun. Um, so this is going to save all of the headlines from this particular request. Of that web page to a text file called headlines.txt. So I'll show you, this is my directory. There's no headlines.txt yet. And this is my web scrape intro script. So if I run this script, it generated headlines.txt and it also printed all of the titles here. And if I scroll here, it should match. Oops, I lost you. Come on, man. There we go. Okay, so first title is standard ebooks, blah, blah, blah. Yep, the S and M, interesting, stands for security. Nice. So that looks like it didn't quite get things super accurately, right? Because it's saying that number 4 is something that is not the title. Um, Pitfalls of Safe Rust, corrode.dev, which is actually the looks like it's the source for number 5. So this might not be super 100% accurate. You might have to refine um, the selector a little bit more. But generally, this is a way to get scrape data from a website. Um, so I think that is it for this demo. Um, and I think that's also all we're going to cover as far as web scraping goes, because I talked about it a little bit in an in-class activity, I believe, last week. So refer to that. And there's also a chapter in your textbook about it as well. So that is it for this demo.